Last week, I completed my disability simulation assignment, and my diagnosis was had a pacemaker placed. It was status post day one, and I had cardiac precautions. I had a shoulder sling and a hemi walker for my equipment. So this experience really was eye-opening just to see how others reacted to me, not just on campus but also off campus. It made me really see what a disabled individual goes through on a daily basis. Um, and at times it is very challenging. And as an OT, it's so important for us to understand not just the disability but also the individual and separating the two. So, what I want to do first is just go through the reflection questions that you assigned. So, my first question was, what did you learn from this experience and how will it help you in being a better clinician? So, as an OT, it's so important to learn how a disabled person really feels. And even though it was a simulation, it painted like a true picture for me on what they actually deal with and psychosocially and physically what they deal with. Um, and on campus, I felt like I was getting pity, and every time I was close to a door, as someone would rush up and hold the door open. But then others on the opposite spectrum, they just stared at me and didn't really say anything. So as an OT, this experience will help me separate the disability from the individual by knowing how they feel. That will help us guide us in intervention. It's also will help us not only ask how did this diagnosis happen, but how they are actually feeling. So getting more of the psychosocial aspects of a client and their perspective. So the second question is, what did you learn about the ADLs and IADLs process through your 48-hour disability simulation, and how does it differ from your baseline? So completing ADLs and IADL tasks was kind of quite difficult just due to my apartment and the layout of it. The doorways in the room itself are very small, so trying to get the hemi walker into each room was quite a struggle. Since I did have a shoulder sling, it was much more difficult to get dressed and use the toilet each day. So just like everyday tasks took 10 times more thinking. And usually when I do get dressed, I don't have to think about it. But during this experience, I really had to think about each step, the sequence of every little task that I did. And most ADLs and IADLs that I complete now are just habits, and I've created routines in order to complete each task. But this, I literally had to think about everything that I did, and I had to take it a little bit slower. My next question is, do you feel this assignment is controversial? Please justify your answers. So I thought this assignment was controversial in some aspects. Like, yes, it was a great learning experience. I actually did learn a lot from it. But we were portraying a disabled individual, and we might not have been doing it appropriately or accurately. I am part of the drive program for my emerging area for my level ones, and at times, obviously, I had to go to class with them, and at times I felt like I was making fun of them in some way because um, obviously I can disassume my disability at any point, but they can't. So I just felt like it uh, didn't portray them in the best of light. Um, and at points, I didn't think we were getting the real picture just because we could disassume our disability and we didn't have to be portraying it at all times if need be. So my next question is, discuss your community outing, how you felt, people's reactions, and other interactions you may have had during this experience. So for me, my community outing was actually really interesting. I had one of my friends who's also an OT student come with me to the shopping and to the shopping at Tops and just shopping at one of the department stores around here. So at Tops specifically, I walked into the store. I got so many stares from especially the workers. They didn't even say anything. They just stared at me. And then I was looking for down an aisle for, I think it was breadcrumbs or something to make my dinner, and this lady was in the aisle and she stared at me for a good 10 seconds before even saying, "Hi, do you need help or anything?" Like, she wasn't a worker, it was just a customer. And I didn't ask for her help. She went out of her way to find the aisle for me as if I couldn't find it myself. And there was a guy behind her as well who did the exact same thing as if I was incompetent of finding it by myself. Um, Even the workers, they didn't know what to say, so they were kind of like, they just felt, some of them felt like they were uncomfortable in certain situations and things like that. My next question I chose is, what specific items did you choose to make your meal, and include any adaptive equipment that you used or that you would wish to use. So my meal that I chose was shake and bake with pasta as the side. It was actually quite difficult to decide what I wanted to make because I usually do microwavable or oven-based items. Um, but that shake and bake, I've made it before, so that was just like an easy decision for me. If I didn't have one of my friends there with me shopping, I don't know if I would have been able to complete the tasks in a timely manner. I think it would have taken me a lot longer to complete if I didn't have her with me. But one of the most challenging things during that task, though, was because I was trying to do it myself just to get the real picture, so I was trying not to have my friend help me as much. So probably the most challenging was holding on to the Hemi Walker with a shoulder sling, plus trying to put the chicken in the oven. The adaptive equipment that I used, well, I started using a knife to cut the chicken after it was cooked, but it was really a struggle, so I decided to use a rocker knife to make it easier for me to cut. But that was the only adaptive equipment I used. But after completing it, I kind of wish I had a guard plate, a plate guard, because every time I would try to pick up rice or chicken, it would slide off, and it got quite messy at the end when I was trying to eat it. And and then my last question I want to answer is, what makes this assignment even better? What could make this assignment even better for students in the future? And one thing I had is make one due date for everyone, or give us longer than 1 week to complete all the tasks and the assignments. I felt like I was rushed and just trying to get the parts done rather than trying to make it a learning experience. And those that do theirs in the beginning week have more time than those who would do it at the end of the week, and it might not be feasible for those people to do it in the beginning of the week. Another suggestion is maybe doing it longer than 48 hours to truly get a full picture of what it's like to be disabled and the perceptions that people hold, because I feel like everyone, again, was just being rushed and they couldn't actually experience it the authentic way, things like that. And then my last thing that I maybe would suggest is maybe doing more outings in the community, because I felt like I got more of a true picture of what people think, what people do, how people react to being disabled than those on campus. Because as soon as someone saw me on campus, they would immediately know that I was an OT student who was doing an assignment and it wasn't real. But I got like a true, authentic picture when I was actually out in the community. But overall, I really enjoyed the experience and getting to understand what they truly go through on a daily basis. So it's definitely a great learning experience, especially for OTs, because we have to be able to understand the client, the diagnosis itself, but also the individual itself too.